So this is something that I'm definitely going to be doing more of throughout this phase of training, is regular stretching. Uh, when I got injured, basically the only thing that I felt really positive about was that I didn't have a lot of the aches and pains that I tend to have when I just am in a pretty consistent weightlifting period. Um, So this is something that I'm going to do differently here. A long time ago, I worked with a dude, probably my first introduction to real, structured training was with a guy named Ido Portal. And you should check him out if you haven't heard of him or seen any of his stuff. He's a super genius. But a lot of that training with him focused around a more generalist approach. It wasn't just strength training. It was a lot of mobility and balance and strength and all sorts of different stuff like that, coordination stuff. And one of the things that he talked about that has really stuck with me is that if you choose to specialize, you're going to pay a price for that. And over the last few years, I mostly was just lifting weights and doing just strength training. And I definitely noticed a downgrade in my overall quality of life, as I was very stiff. I had lots of aches and pains. And I just didn't pay a lot of attention to it, but it definitely was a big negative. And when I got hurt last year and had to take a break from the weight room, I did much more stretching. My muscles got smaller, and that that definitely helped me free up some of my movement as well, without a bunch of stuff blocking the way. But there are ways to maintain, solid muscle mass and still have that flexibility and mobility that we want. So I don't want to be a super specialist here. I'm going to incorporate more of this type of stuff. And this is stuff I don't always mandate this type of stretching for clients or whatever. But if people do have soft tissue restrictions and that keeps them from being able to do a good squat, or you can't get a certain range of motion in your upper body, it's definitely important to work on this stuff so you can get the most out of the type of training you want to do. So here, doing a little Pidgeon, working on the piriformis. A big issue I have, which is probably the biggest thing that I'm trying to work on, is my adductors on my right side. I injured those a few years ago doing something that I'm about to do here, a loaded pancake stretch. I got a little too aggressive with it and ended up doing some type of damage to my adductors on my right side. And now, if I don't stretch regularly, it just ends up being so tight. It's like a rubber band about to snap, even from just sitting there doing nothing virtually. I can't sit upright on the floor without feeling it. But with a good solid week of consistent stretching, that tends to go away, and I can maintain a solid, a good pancake stretch without any of that undue super duper pain that's so miserable. So I have trouble focusing on more than one goal at once, but 2 goals is manageable. So as I've talked about, I'm ultimately working on, this is kind of building my base to pursue a double body weight squat. And then I want to regain my full chest to floor pancake stretch. So that's going to be just some consistent stretching work required for that. I'm not a super flexible guy naturally. So this is the loaded pancake. Once upon a time, I could just fold myself onto the floor without much trouble. And this is something I developed when working on hand balancing. You need a good hip mobility and compression strength for straddle press handstands. So here you load a plate on your back, you maintain the arch in your lower back, and you try to hinge forward Like fold your belly button onto the floor like a book. So you don't want to round your back here. You can. There are reasons that you would do that, but that's not the objective. I can barely move. I feel nothing on my left side, but I feel everything on my right side. I can, oof, this actually is hurting to watch. So light weights. When I hurt myself, I was working from the floor, I had my chest on the ground, and I was just trying to approach this like a typical strength move. And I had a 25 kilo plate on my back. And for some reason I thought it would be a good idea to try and explode upward. And I just ended up causing some sort of strain on my right side that has appeared to be some sort of permanent restriction. And if I don't stretch it all the time, it seizes up and feels awful. So here I'm doing 10 reps. I'll lower to the lowest position I can get and then raise back up. And then on the 10th one, I'm doing a 30-second hold at the deepest position, which, as you can see there, is not very deep. But hopefully, over the next couple of sessions, I'll be able to get myself on the floor. Sitting on a raised platform there is a way to modify that exercise if you don't have much flexibility or you have the type of restriction that I have. Here, just working on the hamstrings, again, trying to fold like a book, not rounding the back on this particular session, just doing 30-second holds on each side. And for each of these sequences here, I've done 3 sets. I do 3 sets of each. And so I will continue doing this. I think instead of just taking full days off, I'll show up to the gym, do some stretching. I'll do some upper body work next time out. Maybe some more work on the adductors. But yeah, work on some of this stuff. Don't just do strength training. This is necessary for a solid quality of life.